You know, a lot of folks remember Ford and GM battling it out for the spotlight, but Mopar played a different game entirely. While the big boys put on a show, Dodge, Plymouth and Chrysler were in the back room building monsters. No fanfare, no apologies. These weren't just cars. They were rolling statements of American defiance, made to smoke Camaros at the lights and hush critics with raw talk. Mopar didn't sell you polished ads, they sold you street reputation. And while history books might skip their boldest moves, we haven't forgotten. Today, let's dive into 10 times Mopar broke every rule in the book and left us with machines that still make our hearts race. So buckle in. This isn't about pretty chrome or polite applause. It's about real American power, the kind that turned quiet towns into drag strips and left tire smoke in the history books. Number 1, 1969. Dodge Dart GTS 440. Can you picture a 1969 Dodge Dart with a 440 cubic inch big block V8 stuffed under the hood? It was like strapping a howitzer to a bicycle. No power steering, no air conditioning, no creature comforts. Just raw American torque that would rip your arms out of their sockets if you weren't ready. Officially, it claimed 375 horsepower, but anyone who raced one will tell you it made well over 400 once it was dialed in. 0 to 60 in under 6 seconds, quarter-mile times in the low 13s, even straight from the factory. You wouldn't see glossy ads or TV spots. This was a whispered deal, set up quietly between Dodge dealers and the street racers who really knew what they wanted. While Ford and Chevy bragged about their lineups, Mopar handed the Dart 440 to people who actually used it, on the strip, down deserted highways, under cover of night. It didn't just beat Camaros, it humiliated them. And the best part? Nobody saw it coming. That's what made it such a legend. Not the hype, not the badges, just knowing that if you lined up next to it, you'd better say your prayers. Number 2, 1963, Plymouth Belvedere Max Wedge. Back when the term muscle car hadn't even become a household phrase, Plymouth was already busy redefining what a street machine could be. The 1963 Belvedere Max Wedge wasn't some polite family sedan with a bit of extra chrome. It was a factory-built dragstrip assassin disguised in everyday sheet metal. Under the hood sat the legendary 426 cubic inch Max Wedge 5.8 with high compression pistons, dual carburetors, and factory headers that screamed serious business. Officially rated at 425 horsepower, but ask any old racer and they'll tell you it was underrated on purpose. With slicks and a good tune, these cars ran low, 12-second quarter miles. In the early 1960s, it even came with a warning label in the trunk, not intended for street use. Chrysler wasn't sugarcoating it. They were selling you a turnkey race car you could title and drive home. While Ford and Chevy were busy marketing style, Plymouth handed the real enthusiasts unfiltered, brutal speed. Because the Max Wedge wasn't about looking good on Main Street. It was about owning it, 1/4 mile at a time. Number 3, 1970, Chrysler 300 Hurst. They didn't call it the gentleman's hot rod for nothing. The 1970 Chrysler 300 Hurst wasn't built for kids with slicked back hair and racing jackets. It was made for grown-ups who wanted serious power without giving up luxury. This beast tipped the scales at over 2 tons, yet hid a 440 cubic inch TNT V8 under that special fiberglass hood, delivering 375 horsepower with the kind of low-end torque that felt endless. And it wasn't just brute force. With Daytona-inspired styling and gold accents, it looked every bit as classy as it was fast. Only 501 were ever made, making it a rare sight even back then. The quarter mile in 15.7 seconds might not scare a dragster, but for something this size and plush, it made a point. Rich interior, bold exterior, serious attitude, because the 300 Hurst wasn't about boy racer nonsense. It was refined muscle, built for the driver who wanted to cruise in style, but was always ready to drop the hammer when the light turned green. Number 4, 1978, Dodge Aspen RT Super Pack. By the late 1970s, the American performance scene was on life support. Emissions rules, gas crises, and insurance rates had sucked the fun out of Detroit. But Dodge wasn't ready to let the muscle car spirit die without a fight. Enter the 1978 Aspen RT Super Pack, a glimmer of rebellion in an era of compromise. This wasn't just some cheap decal package. Under the hood sat a 360 cubic inch V8 paired with performance suspension, sway bars, and a 3.21 rear end that actually meant business. While most new cars struggled to crack 18-second quarter miles, the Aspen managed it in the mid-16s. That might not sound wild today, but back then, it was enough to embarrass plenty of so-called performance cars. Sure, it wasn't perfect. The body creaked, the smog equipment choked it, and it didn't have the polish of its 60s predecessors. But it kept the flame alive when so many others gave up. Because the Aspen RT wasn't about giving in to the times. It was about reminding drivers what it felt like to have a V8 rumbling under your right foot, even when the world was trying to forget. Number 5, Plymouth Roadrunner 440+6. Not everyone could afford a Hemi, and Mopar knew it. That's where the Plymouth Roadrunner 440+6 came in. A no-nonsense street brawler built for people who cared about going fast, not just showing off at the drive-in. Under the hood, it packed the legendary 440 cubic inch V8, topped with 3 Holly 2-barrel carburetors, the famous 6-barrel setup. It was good for a factory-rated 390 horsepower and a monstrous 490 pound-feet of torque, numbers that meant real trouble for anyone foolish enough to line up next to it. It didn't need fancy badges or the mystique of the Hemi. It hit 0 to 60 in well under 6 seconds and could turn 13.5-second quarter miles straight off the showroom floor. Cheaper, simpler, easier to maintain, but just as willing to lay down black stripes of rubber that told the whole story. Because the 440+6 wasn't built to be a garage queen. It was built for the serious racer on a budget, the kind of driver who didn't need hype, just a brutal, dependable weapon ready to teach anyone a lesson at the next stoplight. Number 6, 1978, Dodge Lil Red Express. It didn't look like Detroit's idea of a performance machine. The 1978 Dodge Lil Red Express was bright red with wood trim, chrome stacks shooting up behind the cab, and styling that seemed like a novelty act. But under that playful exterior was something no one expected: a high-output 360 cubic inch police interceptor V8 with no catalytic converters holding it back. In an era strangled by emissions laws and neutered performance numbers, Dodge found a loophole in the rules for trucks. The result? The fastest American production vehicle from 0 to 100 miles per hour in 1978. Faster than the Corvette, faster than the Trans Am. Tested quarter-mile times around 14.7 seconds left so-called muscle cars wondering what hit them. It wasn't subtle, it wasn't refined, but it was pure Mopar mischief, taking advantage of the system to deliver real power when almost everyone else had given up. The Lil Red Express didn't just bend the rules, It laughed at them. Because this wasn't just a pickup, it was the first true muscle truck, proving you didn't need to be a coupe to leave your competition in the dust. Number 7. 1986 Dodge Shelby GLHS, forget chrome and cubic inches for a second. In the mid-1980s, Carroll Shelby proved you didn't need a big block V8 to scare people. The 1986 Dodge Shelby GLHS was based on the humble Omni hatchback, but Shelby turned it into a pocket rocket that embarrassed cars with twice the engine. Under its unassuming skin was a turbocharged 2.2-liter four-cylinder, putting out 175 horsepower. Serious business for something tipping the scales at just under 2,200 pounds. It could rip 0 to 60 miles per hour in 6.5 seconds, out-accelerating the Mustang GT of the day. On winding roads, it didn't just keep up, it left them behind, thanks to sharp suspension tuning and a chassis that actually wanted to corner. It didn't look threatening. That was the point. It was the ultimate sleeper, a car that could leave you red-faced at the next stoplight if you underestimated it. And with Shelby's name on the badge, it had real pedigree, a blend of American ingenuity and old-school hot-rodding spirit. Because the GLHS wasn't about looking tough, it was about being tough, no matter how many cylinders you had under the hood. Number 8. 1979 Chrysler Cordoba 400. By 1979, performance was supposed to be dead. Emissions rules, gas shortages, and changing tastes had turned Detroit into a land of underpowered coupes and soft luxury barges. But Chrysler wasn't ready to roll over completely. Enter the 1979 Cordoba 400, a car that wore its rich Corinthian leather proudly but hid real Mopar attitude underneath. While most automakers were choking their engines down to embarrassing levels, Chrysler stuffed in a 400 cubic inch V8, offering genuine torque when everyone else was running on fumes. It wasn't about blistering quarter-mile times anymore. It was about having power on tap, even if you planned to cruise the boulevard instead of race it. Sure, it had opera windows, a vinyl roof, and enough chrome to light up the street. But under that fancy suit was a rear-wheel drive platform with enough grunt to remind drivers they were still in a Mopar. Because the Cordoba 400 didn't need to scream muscle car. It just needed to hint at it, a wry smile, a knowing nod, proof that even when the world demanded compromise, Chrysler was still willing to bend the rules to keep the spirit alive. Number 9. 2006 Chrysler 300C SRT8. By the mid-2000s, Chrysler decided it was time to remind everyone what American muscle could really look like, even if it wore a suit. The 2006 Chrysler 300C SRT8 wasn't your grandfather's gentle sedan. It was a bruiser in a tuxedo, packing serious heat under that formal exterior. Under the hood, a 6.1-liter Hemi F8 cranking out 425 horsepower and enough torque to make you rethink merging etiquette. It wasn't just quick, it was shockingly fast for a full-size luxury sedan. 0 to 60 miles per hour in under 5 seconds, quarter miles in the low 13s, all while you sat surrounded by leather, wood trim, and GPS navigation. Brembo brakes, stiffer suspension, and fat rear tires made sure it could handle the power with poise. But it didn't need loud graphics or shouty ads to prove anything. It simply whispered violence, letting you know that while it looked respectable, it could flatten most sports sedans in its path. Because the 300C SRT8 wasn't about bragging, it was about delivering, showing that Chrysler hadn't forgotten how to build a muscle car, even if they dressed it up for dinner. Number 10. Dodge Challenger SRT Demon. This wasn't just Mopar bending the rules. It was them lighting the rulebook on fire and throwing it out the window. The Dodge Challenger SRT Demon was built to do one thing better than anything else: dominate the drag strip straight from the factory. With 840 horsepower on race gas, drag radials, line lock, and a trans brake, it wasn't some street poser. It was a purpose-built drag car you could legally drive home. 0 to 60 miles per hour in 2.3 seconds, quarter mile in 9.65 seconds. It was so fast, the NHRA banned it from competition unless you added a roll cage. They didn't even pretend it was practical. You could get it with just one seat to save weight. It came with a crate full of tools, skinny front wheels for racing, and a promise that if you lined up next to it, you were going to lose. Badly, because the Demon wasn't about subtlety. It was Mopar's final, unapologetic answer to anyone who said the muscle car was dead. It proved that when it came to raw American horsepower, they were still the baddest kids on the block. And that's our look at 10 times. Mopar didn't just bend the rules. They broke them clean in half and made no apologies. These cars weren't built for marketing brochures or polite approval. They were made for real drivers who wanted to feel every ounce of raw American power under their right foot. Which one of these legends speaks to you most? Or maybe you've got your own Mopar story, a memory of racing at midnight, wrenching in the garage, or just dreaming of the day you'd own one. We want to hear it. Drop your thoughts and stories in the comments below, because that's what keeps this history alive. And if you enjoyed this ride through Mopar's wild side, give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and ring that bell so you won't miss out on the next adventure. Because the road is long, and there are still plenty of legends left to uncover.